Hey everybody. I wanted to say hi and welcome for coming to my live stream. I wanted to make sure that you all can see me, and I know that there's a bit of a lag time in the comments, so I will wait for a few. I know there's a few people who have already come into the room and we're waiting, and that's awesome. So please shoot me a comment in the comment section if you can see and hear me. When I've done this in the past using Ecamm software, I have had some difficulties. Hey, Peter. Peter joined, and so that's good. Hopefully everyone can see me. And welcome to my live stream today, and thank you for making time out of your day. And towards the holidays, I know it's a Friday. I know it's 5 o'clock. I know everyone in the East Coast anyway. I know everyone wants to go home and relax and have dinner. I know on the West Coast it's a little earlier, and so you're probably just itching to get out of work. Hey, Juan. Hey, Michael. Good to see you. Cash, awesome that you could make it. And Peter and Stin, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing your name, but welcome. And Ava, welcome to you. Joselle, awesome. I do want to make an announcement about this particular live stream. Joselle Tech, you see her in the comments, Joselle DG Tech, is my marketing assistant and is a partner here at VanDusen. So she is going to be the moderator for this live stream, and so she may be responding to comments in the comments section directly to you guys, and so she's going to try to play that role a little bit, and I thank her for doing that. And she's an awesome partner in my agency, and she's got a fantastic agency of her own. Joselle is located in the Philippines and has an agency called The Rolling Media, and you should definitely check them out. She's very active on social media and puts out some tremendous content. And so thank you, Joselle, for agreeing to be the moderator today. Phil, why do you have so many subs but your videos have few visits? Okay. And lots of people get that. Roberto Blake has 400,000 subscribers, and he averages a couple thousand views a video. It is not unusual that in my particular case, a few of my videos went viral and I got a huge amount of subscribers from that, and not all of them frequent my channel regularly. So my subscriber count is real and high, but not everyone is attracted to every single video I do. My videos, to a certain extent, are kind of niche in the fact that I do education around branding and brand strategy and design and entrepreneurship. And everyone who watches my videos loves them. So if you can help me, Antonio, and share my stuff on social media, I would totally appreciate it. Andrea, welcome. Sana, welcome. Thank you guys for showing up and joining me today. So one of the things I did is I put out to my email list, and you can see the email list subscription link on the screen right here, philipvandusen.com/muse. Muse is the Brand Muse, excuse me. Sorry about that. Brand Muse is the name of my newsletter that comes out every couple of weeks in general. And if you go to that link, you can subscribe to my newsletter, and then you will be on my email list, and you will get all the announcements in advance of when I go live, and also all the announcements I make about my masterminds and my products and my services, and then you'll also get a heads up about when I go live like this, and you can ask questions. And so this time around, I did it a little differently. I actually polled my email list for questions prior to going live. So I have a number of questions that I've actually already prepared for today. I will probably be taking additional questions a little bit later, but I wanted to address some of the questions that I've gotten from some of my email list directly. And so one thing I will ask you to do is that if you want to ask a question, type the word question, like it says on the screen right there. Sorry, right there. In all caps before your question, because then Joselle, my moderator, will be able to recognize that it's a question for me, and she can pull it, copy it, paste it, and she's connected with me on text chat, so she can surface those questions for me once they scroll by in the comment section, and I won't have to go back and find them. So thanks a lot for doing that. Hey, Edge, Sheila, welcome. LMK21, thanks for joining. It's going to be a really cool live stream today. Number one, because I'm answering some very excellent questions, I have to say, for some of the people who sent them in. And also, I'm going to be making some really cool announcements today about some new stuff. And it's going to be, it's going to really set the tone for 2020 and what I'm going to be doing in 2020. And I'm going to be bringing some new content and some new ways to interact with me on a much more direct level, and to learn an even deeper amount that can definitely help you in your businesses and help you succeed and grow and get more clients and make more money and get better as a designer and a creative professional. And so there, Joselle is commenting, and so she's putting moderator in caps on her comments. So that's who you should direct any other kind of conversation to if I'm just talking and I can't respond directly to the comment section. Berger, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. So the format is that I'm going to, read some questions and answer them, and then I'm going to be making some announcements a little bit later in the broadcast. And so I'm going to do something very cool. I have a secondary camera. Check that out. How cool is that? I have a secondary camera set up that shows a little bit more of kind of where I'm sitting and what I'm doing. This guy up here that you can see is Buck. He is he's the mascot of my agency, Verhal Brand Design. And if you are on my email list, you saw Buck in my holiday card that I sent out a couple days ago. And I hung, some ornaments on Buck and took a picture of him and did some cool stuff to create some artwork for that card. But I wanted to show you this other kind of cool view. Isn't that awesome? Anyway, just to keep it interesting. And Catherine, welcome. Good to see you. Michael, yeah. Peter, you're sharing some of my announcements early, so shh. I'm going to talk about that later. I want to do one thing, and that is close this window of YouTube because it's got a huge lag and it's distracting me. Anyway, okay, so let's jump into some questions. First of all, the first question is from Ulrich Sperling. And Ulrich, like all of these questions, is a subscriber on my email list. And Ulrich asks, I wonder if you could spend a moment talking about the right time in the sales process to give price indications, especially if prices or price ranges should be indicated on the website where one promotes his or her services such as web design. That is a really, really good question, and one that I actually talk about a lot and has evolved even in my own consultancy and agency over time. One of the things that you have to do when you are ever dealing with a prospect or a new business prospect is you have to qualify them. And that is, you have to find out whether they are going to be able to afford your products or services or what they're expecting to pay. So you don't spend or waste a tremendous amount of time talking to someone and sharing your knowledge if they can't afford you. And so one of the things I like to do is when I have my very first call with people, I generally ask a whole lot of questions. I almost use it as a mini discovery call. It's the best way to let people know that you're interested in their business and to share a little bit of what you know and your perspectives on their business, because that will help them feel more comfortable with you. And in that call, I generally give a little bit of a hint in terms of my prices. If they're talking to me about a brand identity or they're talking to me about a website, I will say fairly upfront and fairly early in the call generally what my websites go for. So an 8 to 10 page website may go for X amount of dollars. the price also depends a lot on the prospect. So if I'm talking to an entrepreneur or a personal brand type of person, an 8 to 10 page website for someone like that is a lot less expensive to produce than it is for a 10 or a 50, $million company. So how you price those out is always tiered in terms of the size of the client. But so I will give a ballpark range of a price. And you can tell pretty quickly by what happens on the other end of the phone if they are going, oh, well, that sounds great, or I had no idea it cost that much, or if there's silence, or if there's a big gasp, or whatever it is. But you can get a sense of whether that's in the ballpark, and you can say, is that in the ballpark of the budget that you had for the project? And so I do that fairly early on because you don't want to spend a lot of time if they can't afford you. And that's, the sad, reality of being in a service business. So you want to qualify them. I also explained the process for putting out a proposal on that call. I say, generally, let's talk about your project. Let me get an idea of scope. And then what I'll do is I'll go back, I'll think about it, and I will give you a ballpark quote. And generally, I provide a ballpark quote via email, and do a general scope of the project and put some prices behind it. And I say, if you agree to and are aligned with the ballpark quote, I will then go to the next step and develop a fully fledged proposal where I will outline all of the steps and all the interactions and all the deliverables of every phase of the project. Now, if you're a creative professional and you've done proposals, you know that developing a proposal is time consuming. It can take hours to develop a detailed proposal for a client, and you don't want to go through that process if they haven't already agreed, at least in general terms, to your fees. And you make it very clear to them that you do not develop proposals until there has been an agreement in writing, an email, to a ballpark price. Now, even if you get that agreement in a ballpark price, it can still fall through, right? And it does happen, but it definitely kind of weeds out a lot of people who are just looky-loos or just looking to kick the tires. So that's part of what I go through in my process. And then when I develop the proposal, obviously, and you also say in the ballpark, you say until we get down to very specifics around what the deliverables and the scope of the project is, these are general prices. And then your proposal might come in higher or lower to that, actually. And so the other part of this question is, do I show prices online, like on my website? I generally, I don't, and I don't advocate that people do. And the reason behind that is there are so many variables in doing branding and design in terms of scope that putting prices on your website will either give people the impression that they're going to pay a lot less for some big project they had in mind, or that they're going to pay more if they thought that it was, they have a very small little deliverable. If you're just starting off and you want to do it, I'm not going to say absolutely don't. I don't advocate that people do it. I don't think there's a tremendous amount of benefit in it. And the largest agencies certainly don't, and I don't. I know people who do. They'll put they'll put a website project up with 5 to 8 page website, blah 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 blah. Copywriting, photography, licensed photography, WordPress site, X amount of dollars. That may work for them. I don't advocate for it. Anyway, so that's that. And now, next question. So this is from Morshida Akhtar. And he says, I'm thinking about artificial intelligence for a couple days. So it came to mind now how much creative skill development, in quotes, of the human mind will be affected by AI and what exactly we need to learn now as a designer. I think that, yes, artificial intelligence is definitely affecting the design and branding world, and it will, and it's already showing up in the form of, intelligent design software as a service like Canva, etc., where you can put in assets and it'll create 15 different variations of it. I think as a designer, though, artificial intelligence is not going to entirely replace design. But for creative professionals, the more you can understand business and the more you can move upstream into strategy, the more you will be able to be of value to clients. And as a designer, you obviously need to learn the basics. No matter what, you need to learn about composition and color and typography and image manipulation. You may need to learn animation. You need to learn a suite of applications and how you apply whatever the creative product is that you develop to the marketplace. So whether that's on websites or whether that's in broadcast media or print or product development, all sorts of things like that, a designer obviously needs to learn, and AI is not going to learn or be able to supply those things to clients. So designers have to learn the basics. They have to learn to be designers. The more they can learn about business and more they can learn about strategy to move upstream in that sort of process, the more insurance they are going to have in their practices and in their businesses to be protected from the influence of artificial intelligence on the market. Leanne, 87, thank you for your question. You may have noticed that Joselle is the moderator for the group, and I'll be taking some questions a little later from the actual chat. I'm addressing questions from email subscriptions first. And I know Giselle has texted me a couple of questions, so I'll be able to scroll back through those. Okay, Alexander Zanderkorp, also an email subscriber, says, where do you see copyright ending and original work beginning in a world of ever-expanding predefined tools, plugins, and templates? Feels like everything nowadays is done for you, and the very idea of designing from scratch is shunned because of the extended production time. What I have to say about that is that tools are tools, right? There's got to be a person on the other end of the tool. And plugins are plugins. Plugins are part of tools. Now, templates are another thing. Templates can make your design as a creative, your job as a creative professional a lot easier. There's a lot of drudgery that goes into developing things that can be outlined or made very easy via templates. I have used templates in my agency, sometimes for presentations, sometimes for keynote templates for clients, but I always consider them to be a very beginning starting place. And you have to personalize them. You have to bring your expertise and your design point of view to that template. I always consider them to be starting points and definitely not, a plug and play kind of deliverable for a client. We are experiencing as creative professionals a huge amount of downward pricing pressure by the marketplace, by the reduction of the influence of borders in the economy, and also the commodification of design as a whole. I think that templates can make our job a lot easier, and it can make our job more profitable, because it will take some of those more simple deliverables to a first or second step before we take it to the fifth, sixth, and seventh step of creating our putting our thumbprint on it and making it fantastic. So it can make our agencies more profitable. And so I don't poo-poo templates. They have their place, but again, they're totally just a starting point. Francesca Bochin asked this question. I would like to know about the workflow between the designer roles, i.e. junior designer, senior, art director, and creative director. What exactly is the role of an art director in a design team, and what is the workflow between the art director and the creative director? For example, the creative director has to come up with a strategy for the brand and has control over budget and planning. I would say roles in design studios are incredibly flexible. It depends on the size of the company or the agency. Depends on the organizational structure of the agency. I've seen people who have a title of art director who are acting like executive creative directors. I've seen people who have executive creative director roles in 6-person departments who have to design. So it's very, very flexible. I mean, in general, I would say that art directors take more of a hand in allocating resources, or who are the designers that are working on particular things. And if there is an art director and a creative director, the break really happens in how much client contact the creative director has. So the creative director will also deal in resources, but also kind of gets into the minutia of budget and aligning the budget with the actual costs of the project or the fees for the project. They'll also evaluate creative, and they get more involved in strategy and the strategy of the brand project and the creative brief, and also interacting with the client. So here's another question, and this is actually asked by Giselle, the moderator, and this is a really there's a really great question that I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to leave that one to the next question. Presentation decks to clients. Do you send out presentation decks where you explain and outline your processes? I'm worried about the prospect just taking my intellectual property or my process and running and not hiring us. That is a concern, and I have had that happen, and I know that Giselle has had that happen. And so one of the things that I do is whenever a client or prospect comes and says, can you explain your process? How do you, what do you do for design strategy? What do you go through when you're developing a brand identity? What are the phases? What's it look like? Can you show me examples? I generally try to do a Zoom call where I will present the process in a slide presentation, PowerPoint, Keynote, whatever that is, over Zoom, and walk them through the process so I can explain it, voice it over, and they can be comfortable with it. I generally do not send out that slide presentation to the client because of that very problem. They could take that process and then hand it to another designer and say, can you do this for me? Or they can just look at that as a roadmap for them doing it themselves. And so after a conversation like that, when I present the process to a prospect, I will send them, kind of a synopsis deck or presentation that doesn't have all of the details and all of the tools. It may just outline it in a bullet pointed format, so at least they have something to take away and they feel like I am delivering something of tangible, so to speak, digitally tangible to them, so they can continue to think about what I shared with them online. But I generally try not to actually send them the process clearly documented, so I would be very careful about doing that. Another question is about naming. So when it comes to naming, what's better, making it a niche or like specific for better recognition of what the company actually does, or to make it general to be more future-proof? In naming is a lot of fun, number one. And so if you don't do naming, you should definitely learn more about it and do it. It's definitely a science, but it can be very lucrative. And but there are a lot of nuances to naming. If you're dealing with an entrepreneur or personal brand, it's always better to pretty much name it after the person. The only difficulty with that is that if you ever scale and you want to sell your brand, it's hard to sell a brand if it's named after a person, because you can't sell yourself, and people will identify the brand with the name of the person, and that's the person they want to speak to or work with. And I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. I worked for a company right when I got out of college called Nothing But Posters. I was a picture framer, and the company was called Nothing But Posters, and they had that on their store. It was a retail store. But they did a lot more than posters. They sold posters, they did framing, they did accessories, they sold gifts, they sold cards. They had gone from just being a tiny little poster framing shop to basically being an in-home accessories company, but they were still called Nothing But Posters. And I know that they really regretted that specificity in when they named their company, because when they scaled, it didn't fit them anymore. That's always something that you have to be really conscious of when you're working with a client and dealing with a naming project. You have to ask a lot of questions and really find out if they're planning on scaling, if they're planning on selling the business at some point, and get them to think much, much farther into the future. So being not super specific in a name is, in my book, always beneficial. So let me, I'm going to actually take a question from the comments right now from Cash and Kashif Amin. Question, Phil, you're very generous in giving back. Here, I'm going to try something. This is cool. You can actually add this to the broadcast. I'll do that. And I'm going to take these things off, take question off, and take AMA off. And I'll move this down. So Cash says, you're very generous in giving back and mentoring. Would you encourage senior creative professionals to do this for others? And how has it made you feel to mentor in the way that you do? I've mentored people throughout my entire career, individually, but also in my role as a creative leader, as a creative director, as a executive creative director, as a vice president. And you mentor and you teach and you grow and you influence and you motivate the designers and the managers underneath you through your entire career. I've always considered people did that for me when I was coming up, and I really, really valued it, and it got me to where I am today. And some of the people I think of most fondly in my career are the ones who gave very freely with their knowledge and their support in helping me improve my skills and get better. And I love mentoring because I love teaching. I started off my career as a fine artist and actually as a teacher. And when I moved into design, I found that managing designers was a lot like teaching because it had a lot of the same aspects to it. You were making aesthetic decisions, you were helping people grow, helping them learn to communicate, helping them to make more money and advance in their careers. And that's what teaching is about. And I absolutely love teaching, which is why I do what I'm doing right this very second. It's why I do the videos that I do. It's why I'm going to be doing other things that I'm just about to announce. And it's been incredibly valuable to me because it cements the value of what I know, and it helps me internalize and understand all of what I know. And just a very quick funny story. I mean, when I started my YouTube channel about 4 years ago, my whole goal was basically I wanted to go on YouTube and share everything I knew and everything I'd learned in my career for my entire career, free, no charge, to help other people grow, get better, improve, make more money, get better clients, improve their creative practices. And that is my way of giving back, and it's my way of helping, you guys succeed, grow, and get better. It's been incredibly rewarding to me to see the people that I've managed in my corporate and agency career, as well as the people I've mentored, grow and succeed and get better and get promoted and make more money and have incredible careers. It's just giving back. It's giving back, and it's the right thing to do. So I totally encourage anyone to mentor. And the other thing I would say is that when it comes to creating content, no matter where you are in your career, even if you're just out of school, there is someone who's 2 or 3 years behind where you are right now that you can help, and that you can pass on knowledge and information to that can help them get to the next level. Even if you're super junior, there are people who below you just getting out of high school or whatever and thinking about where they want to go to college that you could help make that decision. So wherever you are in your career, give back. It's incredibly rewarding. So there's another question I wanted to address, and that is, it's kind of a big one, So there's no way I can do justice to it on this one little live call. But the question is, what is the difference between graphic design and strategic design? And I was actually just talking to a mentee on a call about an hour ago, in fact, about this very topic. And it goes back to everything that I do. Graphic design by itself is a commodity, and graphic design alone is an aesthetic judgment. When you look at a design in and of itself, a client or you can have opinion about, I like this font, I like this image, I like this icon, I like this, I like this color. And it's a beauty show, essentially. And if there isn't anything attached to that design in terms of its functionality or what is the job that it needs to do, then it's just a beauty contest. And when it comes down to working with a client, it's your beauty judgment against their beauty judgment. And I tell you who wins that argument, it's the client, because he's paying the bill, right? Or she's paying the bill. But when you bring strategy into it, it completely changes everything. When you bring the needs of the business and the needs of the consumer and the end user of the design into the design process and build design around a strategic deliverable or a strategic need, then it takes it out of being a beauty contest. And the strategy or the purpose behind the design drives the aesthetic decisions. And it also drives the decisions around evaluating the design in what's good, what's bad, it's working, it's not working. So the difference between graphic design and strategic design is that strategic design is design that's developed around strategy. It's developed around a business strategy. For instance, and I know I'm totally generalizing here, but say that you have an equestrian company, right? You sell horseback riding. If you are developing a brand identity, say you're the horseback riding company owner, and you just happen to love Bauhaus, right? And you love sans serif fonts, and you love really muted colors, and you want your icon to be incredibly minimalistic, right? And that's your aesthetic. If it was a beauty contest, the owner of that horseback riding company might say, "Oh, I love this logo. This is perfect for my business." But you as a designer might say, "Okay, let's think about who your customer is." Your customer, say this company is in Colorado, right? Your customer is a wannabe cowboy, or they are a wannabe John Wayne. When they think about horseback riding, they have a vision of how they see themselves or how they see what they're going to be doing. You have to speak to that. You have to develop a design and an identity that's going to speak to the story around what they expect from a company like yours and the dream that they are going to realize by utilizing your services. And the design should speak to that. And the design will you need to build the design around the strategy of that customer. And that will drive the decisions around the aesthetics of the design. So that's the real difference between the two. Now, here's the really important part. Because of the globalization of the creative economy and the commoditization of design and the downward pricing pressure that design is experiencing, moving upstream, moving into strategy and into business consulting and understanding designs, the performance of a design and the utilization of a design in relationship to a business, and starting to converse with your client on that strategic level is what is going to allow you to sell your work for more money. It's also going to allow you to influence more of the decisions that lead to more work. Meaning, if you start to have strategic conversations at any level that you can, that you're capable of with your client, you are swimming upstream. You're swimming more towards the decision-making range world of that business. And the more upstream you get, the more you into strategy, the more you can influence all of the decisions that come out of the mind of that business owner. Meaning, if you understand their strategy, you understand their business, you understand their brand and what it needs to communicate, you understand their competition, you understand their customer avatar, you understand their category or their market, what their customer avatar is looking for. When you control and understand that kind of intellectual property and knowledge, you can influence the client really heavily, and you can also influence the type of work they choose to do and what they can do to affect their business and their market. And therefore, you can drive more of that work to you. So that's the huge difference around design and strategic design. Strategic design starts to get into understanding and driving more around the performance of a business than just creating pretty artwork that is a beauty show. I'm going to eventually do a whole course on that, about how to up-level your skills from being just a designer to being a strategic designer. And I want to give you a great example. One of my mentees, when she came to me, she was selling brand identity work for, I'm not going to name numbers, but a lower amount of money. Within 3 months of working with me and going through learning, developing strategic design work and strategy for the client, she was able to sell in her next brand identity project for 3 times the amount of money that she used to charge. And I'll never forget the email I got from her when she finally sold that project. She was like, OMG, I just sold a brand identity project for 3 times what I've usually sold it for. And that warmed my little heart like you can't imagine. And that's the passion I have to bring to you guys, is how to give you the skills to be able to do that. And that leads me to my announcement. Okay, drum roll. I'm going to be doing a couple new things this year. One of the things you may notice is that my YouTube videos are going to move more towards more lives and less, produced kind of videos that you're used to getting from me, for a couple reasons. One is that I'm launching a few things this year. Number one, I'm going to launch a podcast, and I am going to put the thumbnail up on the screen. It's going to be called the Brand Design Masters Podcast. And Brand Design Masters is going to be the brand under which I do just about everything for the foreseeable future. And so the podcast is going to be a kind of a varied format. It's going to be some solo shows with just me. It's going to be some interviews. It's also going to be, there's going to be some co-hosts, so some hosts who are kind of regulars, cycling group of regulars, where it becomes more of a conversation type of a podcast around a particular topic. And I'm really excited about it. I'm not going to turn my back on my YouTube channel or presence, but I do have to put some time and energy into launching this podcast, which is turning out to be a lot more work than I thought it was. But I've got help doing it. Anyway, I'm looking to probably end of January drop dead to have this podcast launched, and I'm really excited about it. So it's going to be called Brand Design Masters. Brand Design Masters Podcast. That's what the thumbnail is going to look like. So keep your eyes open for it. And then I am also, this is the next thing. So Brand Design Masters Podcast, that's happening. I am also going to be launching a mastermind group. This is going to take the form of a group Zoom call on a regular cadence. And it's going to be a kind of a membership paid mastermind group where you're going to have more one-on-one access to me on a regular basis. And you're also going to be in a group of other closely vetted creative professionals. I've been a member of a number of mastermind groups, and I'm currently the member of a couple of mastermind groups. And masterminds have done more for me and my growth and development over the last 4 or 5 years than almost any time in my entire career. So I am a mastermind devotee, and there's a huge amount of value that you can get from being a member of one. So I am launching one because I know that I can bring a tremendous amount of quantifiable value to creative professionals who need what I have to offer. And also I can put together a group of people who are going to help each other and augment each other's growth and advancement in their career. So Brand Design Masters Guild, working title Guild, is what that's going to be called. So you can see a theme here, right? Got a brand identity, have different subnomen happening, right? And then it's not done. I'm not done. Is that Brand Design Masters Academy. I'm going to start developing video courses, and it's going to be done under the Brand Design Masters Academy name. So the order of this is I'm going to start with a podcast. The Guild is going to come next. The Guild is also going to be a feeder system, so to speak, for the topics and the types of video training that I do. So if you want to influence the types of courses that I'm doing, definitely look for announcements on the Guild and become part of the Guild, because it's going to be absolutely awesome. I guarantee you. And if you want to be up to date and be in the know and get the announcements when they come out, the thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you subscribe to my email list. So go to philipvandusen.com/muse, M-U-S-E, and sign up for my email list, because that's where I'm going to be announcing the Guild. It's where I'm going to be announcing when the podcast goes live. It's when I'm going to be announcing my academy courses, etc. So totally stoked about that, and I'm so glad that you guys were the first ones to hear about it. So that was 3 of the big announcements. One little plug I want to do here today is that one of the things that hold on a second. You might have seen, if you saw my last graphic design trend video in 2019, you'll know that I mentioned a guy, Daniel Scott, who has a company called Bring Your Own Laptop. And Daniel is a certified Adobe instructor. He speaks at the Adobe Max conference, and incredibly talented, super nice guy. And he has a subscription site where you can pay a low fee. I think it's like $12 a month, monthly, or $84 a year, and get access to his entire library of training videos for Adobe applications. And he's one of the best trainers out there. This is an affiliate link, byol.me/Philip. I get a small commission when people use that link to sign up for his courses. So if you want to support my podcast, my video channel, me financially, which I put a lot of content out there and I don't ask for much, nothing up until now, in fact, please use that link, because he has amazing courses and you should definitely check that out. So that's just a little bit of a financial plug. I want a little advertisement I wanted to throw in there. Okay, so let's go to some other questions. Joselle, my moderator, has plopped a whole bunch of questions in here. Okay, I'm going to scroll back to some of the early ones. Question: have you done your design trends for 2020 yet? No, but I have. It's all coming together. I have a great folder of a whole lot of themes and a whole lot of images, and I'm so stoked to put it together. It's going to be very cool, but I haven't done it yet. I generally do them in the beginning of January, because the holidays are really crazy and everyone's really busy. And then coming out of January, they seem to like settle back into work, and that's a good time to kind of like inspire people for the next year. So that is in work. Okay. Oh, wait. I want to do this. There we go. Second camera. I see I went to all the trouble to set it up, and I'm like not even using it. So, okay. I'm going to scroll down again. Okay. Okay. Kazim Arshad. Qaxim. Sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Often boss says finish design in 20 minutes. So you've got to do other tasks as well. As a designer, you should be... Should we compromise with time limits or do our best without thinking of time? Yeah, well, everyone's up against time deadlines. Every project I do, you're up against a time deadline, and I always am tweaking to the last minute. But projects have deadlines, and you always want to make them better. If you're anything like me, you want to just push it to the nth degree and make it the best it can be. So do your best up until the bell rings. Try not to think about the time. Try to just do the best job you can. And when the bell rings, you turn in your paper. What can I say? Cash asks, are there ways that freelance designers can validate the concepts they propose, i.e. with the target customer or consumer, so that the proposals are more viable? Yes, there are. And that's why I'm always talking about strategy, and I'm always talking about knowing the competition. One of the best ways to sell work into clients is to make them paranoid about what the competition is doing. Any business wants to be somebody else, and they want to be better, and they covet somebody else's business. The best way to get a client to move is to show them someone who's doing it better, different, with more guts than they have. It gives them an aspirational target. And one of the best ways to sell in concepts is to inspire them through visuals of either designs in the same category or even designs out of category that are within the same theme. So, for instance, you could have, you could be doing a logo for a pet food store, a pet store, right? And you could go out and find other pet stores or other pet food manufacturers or other pet accessories companies that are doing like really cool, really modern, motivating, emotional, beautiful design work. And you could put together a little, presentation of a bunch of those images and get them all jazzed about how beautiful that looks. So when you are presenting your work, they have a hunger and they're going to be more open to taking more chances. So I always find it really helpful to do competitive audits or to show what the competition is doing. That will give you additional energy and conversation starters around how to sell in the work that you're doing. I hope that answers your question. Lies MG says, comment, Phil, it's so exciting to see you live. You're a huge reason I'm still designing. Awesome. I have to go now. I have to prep for a meeting. There you go. Bell's ringing, right? Got to prep for a meeting. I wish I could stay for the rest. Happy holidays. That's not even a question. That's just a comment, but that's cool. I like that. Okay, I'm going to look into the list now. LMK21 question: what is the concrete difference between branding and marketing, since branding is done quite a lot through the same formats as marketing, social media, flyers, etc.? Branding is the look and feel, the emotional resonance of a company. Marketing is when you take the visual, verbal elements that are the visual signals of what a brand is. Could be pictures of their product, their identity, their colors, their patterns, their photo style, whatever that is. And you put it into an advertising vehicle, whether that's content marketing or pure advertising, in-store display, packaging, whatever that is. That's marketing. So the brand is the visual and verbal tenets, visual, kind of like the whole ball of wax, the whole brand ecosystem, is branding. Marketing is really what you do with the branding. So that kind of terminology it's a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of clients struggle with that. And, I have to say that in many cases it's treated interchangeably. People misuse it, and therefore it, creates even more confusion around what those terms mean. Peter, thanks for showing up, Peter. I really appreciate your being here and for staying. Which is the better strategy, to do unique work or do what others do, but do it better? Peter, that's a really interesting question. First of all, completely unique work is pretty hard to come by. Completely 100% original work is even more difficult to come by. When, as creative professionals, we're in business, we have to give to our clients work that is going to perform in the marketplace for them. And there is other competition in the marketplace for their business. And their brand is going to be seen in the context of their competition. So you can go about it in a couple different ways. One, you can sit in with the competition and try to do it more beautifully, better, head and shoulders above them, but within the context of the competition. And then what feeds into that also is brand strategy and positioning in the marketplace, and that's like a whole video course. Or you can drastically stand out from the crowd. Drastically standing out from the crowd has advantages and pitfalls. The advantages are people are shocked by it, right? And they kind of like are set back on their heels. The disadvantage of it is that you may be speaking in a visual or verbal language that is so different from the rest of the category, of the rest of the competition, that customers don't even recognize your brand for what it should be considered to be, or the language of the category that it's living in. So you can be radically different, radically unique, but that carries with it a level of risk taking that a lot of businesses don't want to take. Businesses generally, on the whole, are pretty risk adverse. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to leave it at that. Travel Love Grapher. Hi, sir. This is from India. I'm working as a freelance designer long time, but I'm fed up with designing because I'm not getting well paid. Design is a difficult profession, I gotta say. And the more design is, the creative economy becomes globalized, the more difficult it is, which is why I keep beating this drum about becoming more knowledgeable and more fluent in terminology of business and able to communicate on a higher level than most designers. If you are just designing, then you are becoming a commodity, and you are, to a certain extent, replaceable, because there's a lot of people who design. What you have to do is you have to start up-leveling your skills to either become more of a generalist. So specialist is, very narrow in terms of just doing graphic design. Being more of a generalist, so applying that design to a greater range of products, audio, video, animation, games, whatever that is. So you have a broader range of skills, or up-leveling your skills to become more of a business partner, and therefore less replaceable, and more important to your clients and to the company or the agency or the business that you work for. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Philip, can you make a video about how to get into best design schools around the globe? I don't know. Getting into design school is, it's important. It's good. It's something that you should try to do if you can afford it. I have to say that there are very few design schools that are staying up with the demands of the marketplace that I see. I talk to a lot of people who've gone to school and are in debt now for, tens of thousands of dollars, and feel that the design education that they got did not prepare them for the working marketplace as it is today. The tough thing about that is that a lot of companies still want to see, a BFA, a BA, some letters behind your name for the fact that you went to school and you got a degree. But a lot of times, experience and portfolio and the ability to interview well, ask the right questions, be engaging, can get you a job. So I don't know that I am capable of teaching people how to get into design schools around the globe, because I don't know how design schools operate in every country of the world. I pretty much know like the UK and the United States. But I can, I can offer assistance to people, and, people who attend my mastermind guild or watch my video courses eventually will start to get the tools in order to get into schools and to perform in those schools. I think that there are so many opportunities online for free education these days. It is incredible to me how much is available out there for free. I mean, I hate to toot my own horn, but I've received so many comments on my YouTube channel saying, I just learned more in the last 5 minutes than I did in 4 years in university. I've put out an incredible amount of content and information on my YouTube channel for free. And there are a lot of people like me, I don't know how many people there are like me, but there are others who do what I do. And there's a lot of resources online that are free and if you take the time and take the energy to educate yourself, you don't necessarily have to go to design school. The internet has leveled the playing field as far as I'm concerned in that regard. Catherine Murta Adams asks, wouldn't learning UX UI be up-leveling? And I kind of talked about that just a few minutes ago, right? I mean, knowing the basis of graphic design and composition and typography and image manipulation and all that sort of stuff is a baseline. The more you can learn about the application of design, the better. I personally believe to be a specialist, generalist. So be super specialized in one thing, but then broaden your skill set across as many other designer creative verticals as you can, because that will be an insurance policy that you can find work if the specialization that you have goes down in value in the marketplace. UX UI, very hot right now. It is, because everything's going to apps. People are talking about user experience. People are talking about user interface. Personally, I don't even want to say it. User interface work to me is kind of boring. I mean, it's like it's navigation. It's where you click the button. There's not a tremendous amount of like innovative design happening in UI, but there's a shitload of jobs in it. That's for sure. And it seems like every designer job description there is out there, right, is like there's a bullet point that says UX UI. Like everybody's asking for it. So having a basic knowledge of it will definitely help you get your foot in the door if you have some portfolio stuff you can show on the topic. All right. I'm gonna read Peter's. I'm gonna put Peter's comment in on the screen because it's awesome. I'll blow your horn for you, Philip. Your videos are some of the most valuable resources I've ever found, and I've been a creative professional for 35 years. Score. All right. Sorry, I just had to do that. I'm tired. It's Friday. I need some strokes. Okay. Catherine says it's more design. I don't know if maybe Catherine's talking to somebody else. It's less design and more psychology. I think on the whole, the value of design is psychology, and the success of design is based in psychology, and it's based in understanding the business that you are doing the work for, and that's the entire business category, the competitive landscape, their products and services, and that's thinking. That is psychology. That's motivation. So I agree. Okay, you were talking about UX, more design than psychology. Oh, okay, yeah, I get that. That UX is more design, less design and more psychology. Yeah, it is. It's about how the human mind works and how the human mind organizes itself and makes navigational decisions. And user experience, UX is also one of those terms which is really broad. Like some people talk about user experience as being the look and feel and the emotional resonance that you get from an experience. Other people use UX as a slash to UI, and they don't really differentiate between the two that much. I personally see a huge difference between the two. UI is user interface. User experience is experience, which is very psychological. Interface is very tactical and very quantitative in terms of the metrics around whether the damn thing works or not. It's math, really. So anyway, so that's how I feel about it. Now that you know how I feel. Hey, Rick Harold. Rick shows up on just about every one of my videos. I value Rick. Rick is a man. So, quick question. Does automated designing platforms like Canva, Adobe Spark will take over social media graphic designers? What's the future? I'll put on my tinfoil hat and try to tell you guys the future. I talked about this a little earlier in the live stream, but yeah, Canva and Adobe Spark are eating into the production line of graphic design. Meaning, it used to be that when you did a brand identity work or a advertisement or something like that, then you could do a whole production line of different formats and different shapes and sizes and resolutions for a client for all sorts of different social usages. And now, you can just do it in Canva, and it's like, boom, you press a button and then you get 15 different variations of it. But you do have to develop the initial design, the initial assets for the design, the typography, the imagery, the color palette, the identity, the look and feel of that brand's ecosystem. Those sorts of things can create easy production lines. Now, Adobe Spark, on the other hand, that's kind of, and Canva, I guess, to a certain extent, those things are also kind of WYSIWYG design apps, meaning, you can choose one of their 50 fonts and, from their stock library and it's easy to bang something out. And for a lot of people, it's pretty damn handy, which is why I'm always talking about having to up-level your skills beyond just design, because getting into the mind of the business owner that you're trying to do business for is going to make you more indispensable to them. If you as a designer are just a machine and doing variations on a theme, then it's better to leave it to Adobe Spark and Canva. And, it's harsh. It's harsh for me to come out here and say this all the time, but design is being commoditized, and those applications are creating artificial intelligence that's even further commoditizing what people see as design. And so for us to survive, for us as creative professionals to survive, we have to up our game, and that's how you do it. So anyway, are there more questions? For the people who, and I'm going to just do this one more time because maybe some of you weren't here when I did it, but I'm going to do it very quickly. In 2020, I have some new stuff coming, and that is my podcast. I'm going to do this first. I'll do that one. The Brand Design Masters podcast, which is going to come out in January. Keep your eyes open for that. And on top of the podcast, I'm going to be launching a mastermind. It may be a series of masterminds, so there may be 2 or 3 different groups. The groups will probably be around 10 or 12 people, so it'll be intimate, but you will have much more direct contact with me as a mentor, and you will also have a community of other designers and creative professionals that you can learn and grow from and network with. And that's another key benefit of masterminds. And finally, I'm going to be developing some video courses in the new year, probably towards the end of the first quarter. Those will start to launch. And that's going to be called the Brand Design Masters Academy. Those things will all be housed under branddesignmasters.com, which is an active URL, even though there's nothing on it yet. And to tell you the truth, don't even go there because it's like I threw some copy on there and it's not even final copy. So don't go there. Never should have said it. Anyway, it's all going to be under that brand. And I'm going to be launching those things next year. That was my big announcement. So anyone who wasn't here at the beginning who didn't hear that, now you heard it. And I'll flash this on the screen. Email list, philipvandusen.com/muse. That is my email list. So if you are not on my email list, please go to that URL, subscribe. I send out a newsletter every couple of weeks. But I'm also going to be starting to communicate on a more regular basis around my podcasts, my masterminds, my video courses, and sharing more content and more value through my emails than I have in the past. Up until now, it's just pretty much just been the Brand Muse. And I very rarely communicate with my email list other than the Brand Muse. And actually, I want to share something with you guys because maybe you can learn and benefit from it too. And I wanted to give you some insight into why I am starting a podcast. One of the reasons why I'm starting a podcast is I just did a fairly in-depth survey of my email list, and I learned a lot of really incredible stuff. My YouTube channel, the demographic of the people who watch my YouTube videos, when you look at my analytics, about 80% of my viewers of YouTube, the predominant number of viewers on my YouTube channel, are from between the ages of 18 and 35. And then it falls down precipitously after 35. And so I have a very young audience on YouTube. And for the most part, if you think about YouTube, it's a lot harder to watch a YouTube video than it is to listen to a podcast. You can listen to a podcast when you're walking your dog or you're working out or you're driving to work or whatever that is. It's harder to watch a YouTube video. Even I don't watch that many YouTube videos because I usually listen to stuff when I'm walking my dog, and you have to have the video running to actually have the audio come through. When I did the survey of my email list, I learned that about 75% of my email list is 40 plus, 35 plus. My email list is much older and more mature in their careers than my YouTube audience. So there's a fairly clean break between those two platforms in terms of age demographics. And I want to be able to communicate to as many people as I can. And I know that the podcast audience, it's going to be easier for that older cohort to listen to podcasts. And I want to be able to speak to them. So that's why I'm adding on podcast as a content medium for my content. And I wanted to share that with you because I like to be transparent about why I make the decisions that I do, number one, so you guys can benefit on those. And if hopefully some of you will apply to be in my mastermind groups, because they're going to be amazing. And that's the kind of transparency you're going to get to how I built my business and my following and my social media presence over the last 5 years, as well as the previous 25 years of my corporate and agency career. But the reason why I want to share that is because analytics are really important. And it took me like 3 years to really do a decent in-depth survey of my email list. And when I found that out in terms of the age demographics of YouTube to my email list, I was kind of blown away. And I had to really think about how I was delivering content and what was the best way to deliver it to get it to those people. And that's the kind of thing that we as creative professionals and as content producers and our people who are trying to build our own personal brands and our own businesses, those are the sorts of things that we have to pay really close attention to and act upon. And I knew that, keeping up with my YouTube channel when I'm running a very successful branding agency is really hard. And then it was like my admin came in, my marketing assistant, Joselle, and she's like, you got to start a podcast because you're going to reach this whole audience you're not reaching. And she put that seed in my brain. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that she was totally right. That even though it was going to be a huge effort in order to develop two serious bodies of content simultaneously, as well as keep my agency running, I needed to do it. And it is aligned with my long-term plan, which is to sunset most of my design agency, not my strategic or consulting or business consulting, but my design aspect of my agency business, and to increase the level of masterminds, video courses, hopefully eventually events, so live events. And I've got an idea for a live event. So that's an announcement which will probably come in the next 6 months, year or so. So I just wanted to share that with you because that's how my thought process has been going and has been influencing some of the decisions that I've been making that I'm now announcing on this live for you guys. So anyway, it's all like super exciting. I'm super stoked about it, as you can tell. And but the volume of those more produced, tightly focused YouTube videos that I produce are probably going to subside a little bit as I put my back into doing my podcast and launching the mastermind and stuff like that. So that's what's kind of happening. Peter says, hurry up with a live event, Philip. We're not getting any younger. Funny. Maybe you aren't. I'm getting younger every day. But yeah, I have a very cool idea for a live event. And the thing about live events is that they're like, talk about difficult to make happen. And the one I'm thinking about is going to bring some pretty heavy hitting names to an event stage around design and entrepreneurship. And I could drop some of those names now, but I've got commitments already, verbal commitments from a bunch of people that you know and that you follow. So hopefully that's going to happen. Anyway, so we're at about an hour and 15 and my voice is starting to go. So unless there's any like last minute questions and anyone just pings me with really quickly, I'm going to tie this up. But I'm going to do one other little plug for Daniel Scott and Bring Your Own Laptop. Remember, Daniel Scott, Bring Your Own Laptop. He's a certified Adobe trainer, absolutely amazing. video courses. Again, it's like insanely cheap. This guy has the most amazing video courses, and it's $12 a month for anything that you want to watch. $84 a year. Please use my affiliate link if you would, byol.me/Philip. That will give me a small percentage of your fee. It doesn't make it cost any more for you. It just means Daniel gets a little less money and I get a teeny little bit of that money. But that's a way that you can support me in the work that I do, and I would really appreciate it if you're looking for additional training around anything Adobe. And he's an awesome, awesome teacher. So definitely check out Daniel Scott's bringyourownlaptop.com. Okay, there was a couple. Sana put a question there. Interesting. Okay, sorry. I was just like, as new or solopreneurs, we're often advised to model the leaders to become successful. Do as the biggest players in our niche, but they often produce average quality content. Well, yeah, you're probably right. Some of them do. But what I would say is, then do it better. Model after what they're doing, but not the content that they're doing. And there have been businesses and personal brands throughout the ages that recognize a company or someone doing something and they say, I can do it better. And they may take the business model, they may take the customer target, they may take the customer avatar, they may take the mode of delivery, retail, online, whatever that is. And then they say, okay, this is the point of parity, what's called the POP, right? The point of parity. This is what I have to do to meet the demands of that business. And then the point of differentiation is how I'm going to make it better and different. And so what you're talking about is the point of differentiation. And if you know that you can make it better and different, girlfriend, get out there and do it. I'm assuming that Sana is female. Maybe I'm wrong. Another question from Sana: is it possible for a newcomer to break the trend of average in spite of being smaller, or would they just accept and follow along? No. That's my answer. No, don't accept it. Don't accept average. Make noise, make waves, make yourself seen, make yourself present, shake it up, you know? There's enough average out there, that's for sure. And the internet has made it very easy for lots of average to be out there. So, yeah, so go for it. Yes, that was the second half of my question. Cool. Catherine says she signed up and used my URL. Thank you so much. That is so cool. And you're going to like him. I've had Daniel on my show. If you haven't seen that Brand Muse interview, check that out, because Daniel's a really smart and funny guy. I'll also probably, kind of feature him again in my trend video in January. And the other thing I wanted to say about my podcast is that I told you about the format. One of the things that I'm going to do, and I want to be upfront about it, is that I'm going to repurpose some of the content that I've done on YouTube. Some of the themes and the shorter videos I've done on subjects, I'm going to take those subjects and I'm going to expand on them a little bit on my podcast. So some of those topics I'm going to a certain extent, redo and expand upon. I also am going to actually repurpose some of the Brand Muse interviews, the longer form interviews I've done with people like Christo and Chris Ducker and Amy Landino and people like that I've talked to, Daniel Scott. I'm going to take that audio. I'm actually going to repurpose it onto my podcast. So if you haven't seen some of those videos, they'll probably show up on my podcast. And if you have, and then they show up on my podcast, don't ding me for it, because I just want to make sure that, again, that older cohort that are my email subscribers and who, along with the younger people, will be listening to my podcast have been able to benefit from some of those killer interviews that I've done with those very, very smart people. And so anyway, so that's it. Peter says, don't be average. Like Seth Godin says, go make a ruckus. Absolutely. Absolutely. Go make a ruckus. Well said, Peter and Seth. So guys, with that, I thank you so much for showing up. This has been totally fun. I always get amazingly stoked when I do these. Go! I just had to use the second camera one more time. And Buck says goodbye. I say goodbye. Happy holidays to all of you. I wish you all the best if you celebrate any of the holidays. Please be safe. Be grateful. Love the ones you're with. And thanks again. I really appreciate this. Oh, one other announcement, and that is that in not doing as many tightly produced videos, I'm going to be going live and doing this in preparation for my mastermind guild more often. So I may be going live every week or 2 weeks to promote and also to start to gather eyeballs for that launch. So keep your eyes open for me going live more. And I also will very well be announcing a webinar in order to promote that mastermind and doing a webinar around one of the topics that will eventually probably show up in my video courses. So keep your eyes open for that too. And the only way you're going to hear about it is if, I'm going to flash it on the screen again, is if you subscribe to my newsletter and get on my email list, because that's where I'm going to announce it all. So again, thank you guys. Have a very happy holiday. I really appreciate your showing up on a Friday evening. This has been awesome. It's great to see you all. I know so many of your names from the comments. Hey, Sheila, so many of your names. Catherine, Joselle, Cash, Sana, Peter, so many folks who I see in the comments on my YouTube videos all the time and engage and make that community fantastic. And I'm hoping that you will come with me over to my podcast and maybe come with me over to my mastermind groups. I'd love to engage with you on an even deeper level. So with that, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you guys have a great holiday. So I'll see you later.